Not a Real Publisher LLC, production of IMD Operations. Two parents keep their jobs. Their child loses stability. The center is licensed. The payments are made. The waitlist is long. The promise is simple. Care. But the promise does not hold. This is IMD Operations. When systems built to protect people begin protecting power instead, IMD activates three principles: integrity, morality, decency. This is File 008, the Childcare Network. The modern economy makes a quiet demand. Both parents must work. But work requires care, and care has been turned into a market. Not a public guarantee, not a shared structure, a market. When access depends on price, where stability depends on margin, where children become units moving through a system designed for throughput, not attention. The council never has to say it out loud. The technologist builds enrollment systems that rank and filter. The financier structures ownership, extracting yield from centers that cannot afford to fail. The merchant prices care, a necessity families cannot refuse. The architect creates deserts, waitlists, and limited supply. The narrator explains that parents must plan better. They do not need to meet. The system does that for them. A family applies before the child is born. They wait, they call, they accept the only available slot. The center is clean, the staff is kind, the ratios are legal, on paper. Behind the paper, the system moves differently. Staffing shifts stretch beyond what attention can hold. Turnover becomes constant because wages cannot sustain the workers providing the care. Rooms fill faster, then they empty. Incidents are recorded, then softened, then buried in language that protects compliance. Nothing in the report sounds like harm. That's the design. A mother receives a message that the center is closing early due to staffing shortages. A father leaves work again, knowing the next absence will not be forgiven. A child is moved between caregivers who do not have time to know their name before the day ends. The family adjusts. They adjust again. Then they break. Not in one moment, in accumulation. Missed work becomes lost income becomes risk becomes penalty. The system calls that stability. The system does not call itself the cause. That is the network. Not one bad center, not one careless worker. A structure where care exists only as long as it remains profitable to provide it. This is where IMD enters. The analyst identifies the fracture, not the parent, not the child, the fracture. The exact point where care becomes throughput, where responsibility becomes margin, where a child's presence is converted into a revenue stream moving through a constrained system. The coder enters next, not to break the system, but to move through it. Enrollment algorithms, subsidiary pathways, staffing ratios versus actual presence, incident reporting language, ownership structure, linking multiple centers under financial control, waitlist manipulation tied to pricing tiers, public funding routed through private operators with invisible constraints. One center shows strain, 10 centers shows pressure, hundreds reveal design. The records do not show failure, they show alignment. Centers with lower wages have the highest turnover. Centers with the highest turnover have the highest incident rate. Incident rates decline on paper after internal review. Subsidiary funds stabilize the system, but only enough to maintain the operation, not enough to create safety. This machine is not breaking, it is holding exactly where it was designed to hold. The operator acts. Not loudly, not publicly, precisely. Internal guidance surfaces. Staffing records are placed beside the incident timeline. Subsidiary allocations are matched against executive compensation. Parent communications are aligned against internal risk language. The distance between care and control becomes visible, and then the wound lands, not in private, in daylight. A hearing room, a regulator reading internal staffing notes, a reporter holding two documents side by side, one describing compliance, the other describing reality, a spokesperson repeating the language of safety while the data refuses to cooperate. For a moment, the machine loses control, not of the center, not of the money, of the narrative. The public sees what it was never meant to see. That, the wait list, were not just demand, they were leverage. That the shortage were not temporary, they were structural. That the instability parents were blamed for navigating was produced by the system itself. The technologist wrapped inside the logic. The financier holds position without explanation. The narrator reaches for reassurance and finds the story no longer holds. The council is not defeated, it's embarrassed, because the illustration and the illusions have been broken in public. Care was never the product, stability was, and stability was never delivered. IMD Operations in process, integrity, morality, decency, protocol activated. The records hold, the pattern holds, the testimony bends, the documents don't. One family did not fail to plan, one child was not lost in a single mistake, one center did not collapse in isolation. A network made the choice, the clean network, a reputable network, a respectable and legal network, and now it has been seen. This is how the machine is wounded, not when it is criticized, when it is understood, not when people complain, when the architecture becomes legible. That is when the council will strike back. That is how the machine survives the exposure. It studies the wound. IMD Operations complete. The machine will try again tomorrow. The story is fiction. The system is real. Investigation continues in the reader's court.